around Halloween time, back in the parish where I'm in residence, Seven Sorrows in Middletown, there was a costume contest among the kids in our school. And there were two participants that really stuck out. They won their respective categories. The first one was a kid who dressed up as Noah, like from Noah's Ark, and he had the whole thing ready. You know, he had the robe, he had, the rope around his waist, he had the white beard, and he even concocted a kind of ark from a shopping cart. Had all sorts of cardboard on it and stuffed it with 100 stuffed animals. Super impressive. It's great job, kid. But my favorite one was actually the other kid who won his category. He decided that he was going to dress up not as someone from the scriptures, but as our pastor, Father Sod. Not this Father Sod, but I guess with how that twin thing works, he'd probably look like you too. So he got the whole priest fit out. He had the collar, the black shirt, the black pants. He even had glasses like our Father Sod. And then he even put on a bald cap. And naturally stole the show. And so Father Sod and I went up to him afterwards, and he's a 7th grader. We congratulated him, and we said, now, you pulled that out in your 7th grade year. How are you possibly going to top this for 8th grade? And he paused for a second. He's thinking about it. And then he looked me dead in the eye and said, I'm coming for you next year. You have to be careful about those kids in Middletown, apparently. But I love that story because the reason they won wasn't just because they were pandering to the judges or, made us all laugh. The reason they won is because they went all in. They didn't just throw a t-shirt on or just throw a wig or a football helmet and call it a day. That's what I did growing up. But they went all in to try to win this competition. And that is why they won. And I think the same thing is true with our life. That whether it's our life or especially, and most importantly, our spiritual life, the only way to truly win is to go all in. God's not looking for people who are 75% in and 25% out, or who have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Our Lord is looking for people who are fully committed, 100% committed. That's what we see in the Gospels today, that here he goes, he calls his disciples, and they immediately follow him. I don't know if you've contemplated just how wild this story is, that they would just drop everything and follow Jesus just because he asked. Here they are, they're doing their normal job, they're fishing. And this preacher comes along the Sea of Galilee. They've probably heard about him. They maybe have even heard him before, but they certainly don't know him that well. And then he calls out to Peter and Andrew. He says, hey, come follow me. And they go, okay. They leave the boat behind and they come follow him. That's their livelihood. That's their business. Imagine Jesus just walking into your work saying, hey, come follow me, and you just walk out the door. And same thing with James and John. They not only left their boats, plural. They had a business. They left their dad behind, said, see you later, Dad. We're going to go follow this Jesus guy. It's crazy. And they do it immediately. They don't even hesitate. In fact, in the original manuscripts, it says the word immediately comes up so much, we don't even translate it into English because it'd be so clunky. We wouldn't be able to understand it. We'd be like, Mark, we get it. You don't have to keep saying that word, but it's immediately, again and again and again. Jesus calls, they respond. And they didn't even know where they were going, right? At least I didn't read it in here. It wasn't like Jesus said, okay, Peter, Andrew, James, John, this is what's going to happen. Once you follow me, you're going to see me do all sorts of miracles. I'm going to walk on water. I'm going to multiply loaves and fish. I'm going to raise the dead. The lame are going to walk. The blind are going to see. Then one of our inner circle is going to betray me. I'm going to be crucified. I'm going to die, but don't freak out. I'm coming back. And then I'm going to send you out, and you're going to preach the gospel. And guess what? They're going to kill you too. You want to follow me? Could you imagine that sales pitch? Probably wouldn't have gone over well. That's not what happened. He didn't tell them everything that was going to happen. He just said, follow me. And I think implied in that is, follow me even though you don't know where we're going. Follow me even though you have no idea how this is going to go. Will you trust me and allow this to unfold day by day, week by week, year by year? That's the commitment they made. And the thing is, my friends, the Lord expects no less of us. He's looking for the same level of commitment out of you and out of me, that we are willing to follow him at the drop of a hat, that we are willing to go all in, holding nothing back, that we are willing to follow him even though we don't know where it's going. I know this is true of me, and I'm sure it's true of many of you, that we would love to say, like, Lord, I'm ready to follow you. Just show me the way. And like, yeah, that's good, but I think implied in that sometimes is, Lord, just show me the whole plan. Where am I going to end up? How are we going to get there? It doesn't take much faith if we know how we're going to get to the destination. The Lord doesn't want us to only commit to following him once we know the whole plan. He wants us to commit when we don't know it. And it's once we commit, then everything unpacks. Then we get to see God's hand at work. But he wants us to trust him. He wants us to place our life in his hands without knowing where we're going. When I go into the schools, I like to use the analogy of like, okay, let's say we're playing football. And I'll ask the kids, how do you win a football game? And eventually they figure out, well, you have to score more points than the other team. I was like, good job. What happens before that? They say, okay, we have to practice a lot. Okay, skill development, game planning. You need to know your strengths and weaknesses, the other team's strengths and weaknesses. I was like, okay, well, what comes even before that? Usually they're not really exactly sure. I said, do you think it might be important to know what position you're going to play? Like, it'd be helpful to know if you're the quarterback or like the left tackle, for example. You have to know your role on the team. And they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I said, but there's still a step that comes before that. Oh, Father, what's that step? I said, you have to sign up. You have to join the team. It doesn't matter if, like, you need to score more points than the other team. You can have the perfect game plan, the perfect practice regimen, the perfect training regimen. You can know your role, but if you don't actually sign up, your team ain't going to win any games. And they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. The spiritual life is no different. We think all the time, like, what's my role, Lord? What are you calling me to do? But yet, have we ever fully committed to following Jesus Christ? Have we said, Lord, you know what? Even though I don't know what my role might be, even though I don't know how this is all going to unpack, am I going to follow you? Am I going to entrust my entire life to you right here, right now, even though everything else is unknown? I think that's something the Lord is inviting all of us to do during this time of 40 hours. The apostles encountered Jesus in the flesh, and their life was never the same. Here in this 40 hours, we get to experience the same Jesus Christ in the flesh, in the Eucharist. May our lives never be the same. If all we do during this time of 40 hours is reflect on whether or not we're really bought in, if we want to sign up to Jesus' team, to continue that analogy, if we want to sign up to be his disciple, his follower, if the only thing we do during these 40 hours is to say, Lord, I'm all in, then I think that's a 40 hours well spent.